Hey there everyone, I'm Ashley Bullington and you're watching The Fifth Quarter. This is our Friday night wrap-up show where we bring you all the things that are happening around the greater Houston area, and it's playoffs by district. You know, this is the point in the season where everything goes. You know, slates are clean, it's one game, winner takes all, move on to the next round. This is one of my favorite times of the football season. You know, you just get really solid games, solid playing from teams. You see who the best teams are. You see some guys who you don't expect to make deep playoff runs, but do. So we are bringing that all to you. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week. We are going to bring you as many games as we can and scores as we can. So we're not going to have the games up on the screen, but we will be reading off scores from around the greater Houston area. So we're going to start off in 6A Division 1 as Katy takes on Ridgepoint. This was a really close game. Ridgepoint gave Katy probably one of their best games of the season, but Katy pulls it out and wins 35-28 over Ridgepoint. Up next, we've got Cy Falls versus Lamar. Cy Falls wins this one 27-14. North Shore took on Dobie. Both these teams played really well throughout their season. Dobie only had the one loss to Atascocita. North Shore had the one loss to Katy. But North Shore, the defending state champions, show their dominance and why they are the defending state champions. They win 54-0. Pearland played Dickinson tonight. This game last season was a really, really solid game. Dickinson pulled that one out. They were the favorites this year, and they, in a close game, took it again, 28-23 over the Oilers. Pearland Dawson and Clear Springs went head-to-head. Dawson pulled this one out 38-32 over the Chargers. Cedar Ridge and Cy Woods. Cy Woods has had one heck of a season, which is why they are playing in the postseason. They win 42-28. Atascocita and Deer Park go head-to-head. Deer Park was one of those teams. They had a big win over Westbrook a few weeks ago and helped bolster them into this postseason. But Atascocita has been rolling over teams all season, and once again they score over 70 points tonight as they beat Deer Park. Cy Ranch and Stony Brook. Cy Ranch defeats Stony Brook 38-24. Cy Fair and Bel Air went head-to-head, and Cy Fair won that one 65-20. In 6A Division 2, not as many games, but some really good ones. Westbrook defeated Kingwood 55-21. Strike Jesuit went against Clear Creek. Strike Jesuits looked fantastic all season. This was another game where they took it to them. They won 48-14 over Clear Creek. Let's see if we can find the score for this Clear Falls George Ranch game. It's been in the fourth quarter for a little bit. Let's see. The final for that one is George Ranch pulls it out over Clear Falls 49-37. Vandergrift and Bridgeland went head-to-head. This was a really close game, a low-scoring game, battle of the defenses. Bridgeland has had a solid defense all season, but the two-year program loses tonight. They lose 14-13 versus Vandergrift. Klein Collins and Decaney went head-to-head. Klein Collins came out of 7-6A, won 7-6A. Fantastic play from them, and they showed Decaney who's boss. They win 37-6. Westfield and Klein Cain. Klein Cain, another one of those two-year programs. They'd been playing well all season, kind of a surprise, but Westfield wins 41-15. In 5A Division 1, we had another big roster of games, and our game of the week was New Caney versus Foster. Foster won that one 31-21. Shadow Creek went to state last season, a team that we're expecting to see big things from as they keep going and just keep rolling over teams. They've only lost one game in school history, but they won tonight 49-7 over Port Arthur Memorial. Friendswood took on Kingwood Park tonight and won 40-14. And Magnolia defeated their Metroplex opponent 34-14 tonight as well. We only have one game tonight coming out of 5AD2, and that was Barbers Hill versus Sterling. Or no, we actually had several games. Hold on, let's see if we can find the scores on those. But Barbers Hill beat Sterling 42-0. They are looking fantastic so far this season. We'll be breaking these games down more in our next two segments as we have Inside High School Sports Insider Matt Harris and producer of Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports, Robert Sheik, with us right after these messages.
Don't forget to catch our extended coverage of the high school football season each week on The Warm-Up, presented by your local Houston area Geico agents. We will get you ready for all the action this Thursday on all our social media outlets.
And we are back with our Inside High School Sports Insider, Matt Harris. Matt, playoffs, round one. How exciting is it? We are finally into the postseason.
Yes, we are. Second season began yesterday, and we had a lot of big games as teams started moving on to round two.
Definitely. So some of the games that you were watching were our last year's state winners and state runner-ups. So what were some of the games that you were watching? What about that North Shore Dobie game? I know North Shore played tonight. Westbrook played tonight. Shadow Creek. So let's talk about some of those games that you had your eye on.
Yeah, a lot of those teams rolled in their first round matchups, and a lot of those teams have the talent to make it back to state this year. North Shore obviously came into the year favored to make it back to state before losing to Katy in week one. Now it's kind of split. I think a lot of people's opinions split between will Katy make it this year? Will North Shore will they be able to beat Katy down the road and get back? North Shore started off their title defense tonight with a 54-0 shutout of Pasadena Dobie, a team that went 9-1. So they really impressed with that, kind of passing that test. Obviously, Dobie isn't quite on the same level as some of these other teams. Dobie's one loss was 63-6 to a pretty good Atascocita squad. And then some others here. So I'm looking for some of these scores. Shadow Creek started off their road back to state with a 49-7 win over Port Arthur Memorial. Shadow Creek's a squad that I think has the talent this year to win it. DFW's really kind of split in 5A Division I between people don't know if it's going to be Highland Park or Frisco Lone Star or Denton Ryan, and it's not this seemingly Highland Park reign of terror that we've seen the last 3 years. And I really think that Shadow Creek could go all the way and win that this year. And then
definitely.
Yeah, and then I believe the last one we discussed was Fort Bend Marshall got off to a big they've probably got the toughest road back to state, but they beat Port Neches Groves 48-14 tonight. Again, they've got Manville in their region. They've got some other talented squads, Huntsville, who they had to beat last year to make it to the state final against Toledo. So I don't know if they can get back, but I'm very intrigued to see because I think they've got the talent to do it, but it doesn't feel as sure as Shadow Creek and North Shore.
Yeah, Matt. So another game that you were watching was the Pearland Dickinson game. And last year, this one was a thriller as Dickinson pulled it out again. And Dickinson beats Pearland again this year, but still a really close game.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to mention for the last segment that I totally forgot about. Westbrook secured a big one tonight over I believe it was Kingwood. I can't totally remember, but just to mention them real quick, I think that they've got an easy road back to state as well. They've got some tests. I had them losing in, I believe, round 5 right before state. But regardless, Pearland Dickinson, that was a big game from last year. Dickinson came in and upset a Pearland team that was 10-0 in the regular season a year ago. Pearland was 8-2 this year. Dickinson came in at 9-1 with the one non-district loss to 10-0 Allen. And Dickinson came out with a 5-point win. And what was expected to be a great game lived up to the hype. It was a great game. and Dickinson will get Atascocita next week, which I think will be a really interesting matchup because both of those teams are very, very good down in Houston.
Yeah, and Atascocita scored 70 points again like it was nothing. A really good Atascocita team, and those teams all will end up playing the winner of, another really strong bracket that's got the North Shore team in it and the Katy team. But, Matt, as this first playoff week is starting to close down, I know we still have tomorrow, but were there any games that you were really surprised to see the score of?
There were some interesting ones. Just to touch on Atascocita real quick, they rolled over Deer Park 69-29, and Deer Park had a fairly impressive regular season. So that was a good game for Atascocita as they get ready for Dickinson in round 2. I wouldn't say there was a whole lot of surprises necessarily. Klein Cain hung around with Westfield longer than I thought they would, but Westfield ultimately got a 41-15 win over Klein Cain. Lamar Consolidated outlasted Lindale 48-43. Dawson survived Clear Springs 38-32. I thought Dawson had a really good regular season, so that was a little bit surprising. But other than that, I think that is about it. Oh, wait, there was one more. Foster beat New Caney 31-21. And that's a game where, Foster finished 4th in their district. They finished behind Shadow Creek, Friendswood, and Fort Bend Hightower. So, that right there, those 4 is already one of the best districts in the state, regardless of classification. But they went in and took down 10-0 New Caney 31-21 in what was a pretty good game.
Most definitely, Matt. So any of the teams that so far, I know we still have games tomorrow, but are there any teams that have their season has ended that you want to tip your cap to?
Klein Cain making their first playoff appearance in school history. They haven't been around that long as a school, of course, but I really want to tip my hat to Klein Cain, who had a pretty impressive season in that 15-6A district that we loved to follow all year. Was a very tightly contested district. There was a lot of teams fighting for those last couple of spots. Klein Cain was able to sneak in and drew a tough first round matchup against Westfield. I want to give a shout out to Ridge Point for keeping it close with Katy tonight. That's another really good team that is now going home that I know Robert will touch on more here in a second. And then there was, what was the game last night? I'm blanking on it. Tompkins and Travis. Travis went 10-0 in the regular season. I thought Travis had a great year. They have a star quarterback with Eric Rodriguez, Parker Washington out wide, Kalen Schenkel in the backfield. I believe they're all graduating. I know Washington and Schenkel will graduate, which is in a way sad to see them go because they've been really good for Travis these last couple of years, and that they had a really good team and just somehow, unfortunately, drew Tompkins in round 1, which is a tough draw. So a big shout out to Travis, big shout out to Klein Cain, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us here on the 5th quarter. We will talk to you again next week at round 2 as our brackets start to get smaller and smaller on the road to state, where I will see you. Excited that you're coming up here for state. But thank you so much for joining us on the 5th quarter. And when we come back, we'll have producer Robert Sheik on with us.
Watch Inside High School Sports to catch this week's Chevy Spotlight, brought to you by your Houston area Chevy dealers. Visit your nearest Chevy dealer to test drive their award-winning products.
And we're back with the 5th quarter. We have producer Robert Sheik on with us. Robert, the first round of playoffs are almost over. We can't say they're over, but they're pretty darn close. It's been a crazy week, but
a wild night for sure.
Yeah. I mean, looking at some of these scores, you've got Katy, who you knew was going to win, or you thought was going to win.
We didn't know that in the fourth quarter.
That's not what I meant by that. But Katy, who you thought was going to expect it. Thank you for helping me with that. But Ridge Point gave them a big game.
Yeah. And boy, there were a couple of fluky plays that went against Ridge Point that I'm sure the Panthers are going to be kicking themselves about, tonight, tomorrow, probably for another week or so. The game is Ridge Point's leading 14-7 in the second quarter. Panthers are driving again, going in to try to go up 21-7, late in the second quarter. Panthers fumble at the 1 yard line. It goes through the end zone, out of bounds. It's a touchback. In my opinion, that's the dumbest rule in football. It has never made any sense to me why that's a touchback there but nowhere else on the field. But anyway, regardless, it's a touchback. The next play, Katy goes 80 yards for a touchdown. So you're talking about a 14-point swing there. It would have been 21-7 Ridge Point. Instead, it's tied 14-14. So that was a big turning point in the game. But Ridge Point held it together, actually led, scored again right before the half to go up 21-14. And then late in the third quarter, it's 21-21. And just kind of a weird play, a pass from Will Pendergrass. Say that 5 times fast. Pass from Will Pendergrass.
I couldn't if I wanted to. I'll let you do that. I obviously can't talk tonight.
But so the pass from Will Pendergrass bounces off the helmet of his intended receiver. Just kind of a weird, fluky play. Sometimes stuff like that happens. Receiver wasn't necessarily looking for the ball or ready for the ball. It bounces off his helmet. DQ Dawson is there for the interception for Katy.
What a name.
That is a great name.
What a name.
So Dawson, gets the ball, or gets the interception. Katy gets the ball with great field position to start the fourth quarter. That leads to Katy's go-ahead touchdown. Katy's first lead of the game comes in the fourth quarter, after following that kind of fluky interception play. That makes it 28-21. The final score is 35-28. And, if you're Ridge Point, you just can't help but think about those two plays.
Definitely.
What an effort, though, from those kids at Ridge Point. It's always been a great program, really solid program. This is the first time Ridge Point hasn't won the district title in 5 or so years, but those kids played their butts off tonight and came up just short against a really, really powerful Katy team. And the road doesn't get any easier for Katy. Cy-Fair is waiting next week. Cy-Fair with a big win tonight over Bel Air, and the winner of that Katy Cy-Fair game potentially will see North Shore in 2 weeks. So the road definitely does not get any easier for Katy, but a huge sigh of relief from that community that we know that just loves the Tigers. So
I will say that's definitely a loss that you can hang your hat on and know that you gave it your all. First
Absolutely,
off,
yeah,
things
absolutely.
Don't go your way in football, but that's why you play the game.
Yeah. Nothing for those Ridge Point kids to hang their heads about tonight.
Another game that we were looking at was the Pearland versus Dickinson game. Another really close game as well.
Yeah, another, talk about two of the blue blood programs from the area, Pearland and Dickinson. They meet for the second year in a row in the first round of the playoffs. Last year, it was Pearland who came into this game 10-0. The Oilers hadn't lost a regular season game all year, and Dickinson spoiled that perfect season. And this year, the tables were turned a little bit. It was Dickinson coming in 9-1. But kind of the heavy favorite, or at least medium-sized favorite, maybe we'll say. But Dickinson was definitely a team that we expected to be able to go a few rounds deep this year. This is the first year since John Snelson's been at Dickinson. He's had his quarterback, a senior quarterback, returning, starting quarterback, I guess, returning for his senior year, in Mike Welch. So, the Gators had a lot of high expectations for this year and still do, as Pearland tried to turn the tables after last year's first round exit against Dickinson, but Dickinson pulls out a tough one tonight over Pearland. So, another game that, hard-fought game by Pearland, and those kids have nothing to be ashamed of. And Dickinson, again, is a team that can definitely continue to make some noise. I believe it's Dickinson and Atascocita next week. And yes, Dickinson and Atascocita next week. So another, powerful matchup.
That'll be an interesting game.
That'll definitely be a fun one to watch for sure.
Were there any other games that you were watching tonight? We kind of touched on all of the games around the Houston area in the first segment, but were there any other games that really you saw or looked at tonight or last night that it was like, wow, at the end of it?
A lot of them, to be honest. Dawson Clear Springs was a great game. Foster goes up to New Caney and knocks off the Eagles. We just like we talked about. Pearland last year was 10-0 in the regular season and suffered that tough first round loss. New Caney with a great regular season, goes 10-0 in the regular season, beating Porter last week, the crosstown rival, to win the district championship. And New Caney thinking, all right, this is the year we can make something happen in the postseason. New Caney entered the state rankings this week, 10th in the state. Foster was the team we all expected at the beginning of the year to be that 5A Division I team, maybe to really make some noise. And the Falcons probably honestly had a little bit of a disappointing regular season. I don't think anybody saw them finishing 4th in the district in the regular season. But the Falcons, this is when it matters most, and the Falcons came to play tonight and go up to New Caney and get a big 31-21 win. And, that's a program that I guarantee nobody wants to see Foster pop up next to their name on the bracket anytime soon.
I mean, that definitely says something for that 10-5A district of how good that entire district is.
Oh, no question, yeah.
Yeah, especially with, you're playing a 10-0 team, a team that looks like they're going to be one of the best in the states, and they come in and they handle them.
Yep.
I don't want to say it was a blowout or anything like that, because it definitely wasn't, but it was definitely a game that Foster looked really good in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so great job by Foster to pull that out. I'm kind of looking at the rundown. One thing that stuck out to me tonight is how some of these Houston area teams that played intersectional matchups against teams from outside the region, and the Houston area pretty much cleaned up tonight. The District 14 6A, the Cy-Fair ISD schools and Tomball Memorial all playing Austin area schools, Round Rock area schools in the first round. And the district, the Houston area teams go 3-1. Bridgeland the only loser, but Tomball Memorial with a big win over Vista Ridge, I believe it was. Cedar Park Vista Ridge. Cy Ranch with a win, Cy Woods with a win. We saw some of those, again, 10-5A, Shadow Creek with a big win, I believe, over Port Arthur Memorial.
Yes.
Fort Bend Marshall with a win over Port Neches Groves. So teams going outside the area, beating teams from the Beaumont area and the Austin area. Magnolia tonight goes up to the Metroplex and beats Mesquite Poteet in Mesquite. Big win there. So for the most part, yeah, the Houston area teams that did have to leave the region all kind of took care of business and in pretty impressive fashion. So it definitely sets up potentially for some more fun matchups, down the road.
The more outside of Houston area teams you beat, the more likely a Houston team's gonna be in the state championship.
Exactly.
So as we're starting to look ahead, I know we still have some games tomorrow, but are there any matchups coming up next week that you see, or teams that you see that you're kind of excited to see?
Well, for sure, yeah. We haven't even gotten to last night. Katie Tompkins with a big win over Fort Bend Travis.
Huge win.
And now Katie Tompkins will play Cy Falls next week. That should be a fun one. We mentioned Cy-Fair and Katie. Obviously, you can't get much bigger than that. Definitely early contender for next week's game of the week for us. And then, right alongside that, Dickinson and Atascocita, just these powerhouse 6A Division I programs. It kind of stinks that they have to play each other so early, but that's just the way the brackets work out. There's not a true seeding in the UIL state playoffs. It's not seeded 1 through 64, so you get these really tough first round matchups, second round matchups. And we mentioned Thursday night games really quick, and there's one I want to mention. Maid Creek. How about the Rams? First playoff win in 22 seasons.
Holy
awesome
moly.
job. Yeah, awesome job by Maid Creek. Maid Creek will get Cy Creek next week. So I guess somebody will be up the creek.
Okay,
They're
with the
always
puns. But yeah, so fantastic wins. I mean, that Travis team was a phenomenal team. It just goes to show how solid Tompkins is right now.
Great season for Fort Bend Travis. And again, for those two teams, two of the great stories of this season, you hate to see them have to play each other in week one because one of them is going to go home. It would have been fun to get to see those teams play a couple more weeks. Credit to Tompkins, though, for taking care of business and knocking off Travis. And, Tompkins, boy, that's just they went 0-9 2 years ago, and they've since gone 20-4. Yes, 20-4 the last two.
That's why they pay him the big bucks.
Doing the math in my head, 20-4 the last 2 seasons. What a job by Todd McVay, and boy, some of the talent on that Tompkins roster is pretty impressive. So, unbelievable turnaround for Tompkins, and it'll be fun to see, what the Falcons can do moving forward. Next up, as we mentioned, Cy Falls, and potentially after that, the winner of that game would face the winner of Atascocita and Dickinson. So, fun times for a fun program. It's just a fun team to watch. Jalen Milroe. I could watch highlights of that guy all day long. That guy is he's a player for sure.
And speaking of Jalen Milroe, he was our recruiting trail today, so go check that out on the social media platforms. But we're talking about some of the teams that we're playing next week against each other, but we'll kind of give tribute to a couple of teams who are no longer going to be playing. The teams that might have lost tonight. Who are some of the best that you've seen so far this season, or who do you want to give your first round goodbyes to?
We mentioned a few of them. Two that went undefeated in the regular season. Fort Bend Travis, the first 10-0 regular season, I believe, and New Caney, I believe, the first 10-0 regular season in program history. It's unfortunate that both of those teams drew such difficult first-round matchups. Who won the Westfield-Klein-Cain game? That's
Westfield won.
Westfield won. Klein-Cain, what a great story. Second year of the program to get to the playoffs. Same with Bridgeland. Second year of the program, get to the playoffs. Definitely no shame in each of those teams losing very tough first-round, matchups. So, I think that you definitely start with those that I mentioned. I'm trying to look down the list.
I'll tip my hat to one of Robert's favorites all season, Clear Falls, who lost to George Ranch tonight, but a solid season from the Knights.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another one. I can't believe I forgot about them. Another team that we've featured on Chevy Spotlight that did get a big win tonight, Lamar Consolidated with a very impressive win. Again, another team going outside the region. Lamar Consolidated, the Mustangs knock off Lindale 49-43 or 48-43, I believe. So, hats off to them, and I believe it's Lamar Consolidated and Manville next.
43. Yeah, Manville.
So, that'll be a fun one, and it's Lamar Consolidated is going to need to have its best game to knock off Manville, but it can certainly happen. That's for sure. We've seen tonight, a lot can happen, and there's definitely a pretty level playing field for sure. There is a lot of depth right now in the greater Houston area.
So we've kind of touched on most of the things that'll be on the show tomorrow morning, but will anything else be on the show tomorrow as well?
Yeah, we're going to have highlights from last Saturday night's Episcopal Kincaid SPC state championship game. Episcopal dominated on the ground and won that one 42-21. So, we'll hear from the Knights, some post-game reaction from the Knights, and some celebration. The party, I'm sure, went long into the night for Episcopal.
We like state championships around here.
Yeah, so you'll definitely want to see that. And we're talking a little basketball, too. One of the area's top teams in the private school ranks, Westbury Christian, is our Chevy Spotlight this week, ranked number 1 in the state in Class 5A TAPS. So you'll want to hear from the Wildcats as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Robert. And thank you guys for watching the fifth quarter. Got a little choked up again there for a second. Jeez,
I need a little water, too.
I cannot speak tonight. But thank y'all for watching the fifth quarter. You can see the highlights as well as our Chevy Spotlight and everything else tomorrow morning on KHU 11 at 8:30 a.m. on Chevrolet's Inside High School Sports, hosted by Matt Musil. But I'm Asha Billington. He's Robert Sheik, and thank you for watching the fifth quarter.